I'm on a journey into the savage heart of the nerddom dream.
Every Labor Day weekend, tens of thousands descend upon Atlanta as part of the same journey. This is the saga, in their own words, of the superheroes, swashbucklers, space aliens, and assorted other self-professed geeks and nerds who come to spend 4 days at DragonCon.
It is 4 days of you not knowing what's going to come next.
One of the downsides of being a really hardcore fan of any sort of genre show or book series or movie series, whatever, is that often you don't have a lot of people around you who share that same sort of passion and excitement that you have. In sports, it's geographically based, regionally based, so there's a good chance there are people around you who have that same sort of interest. With things like science fiction and fantasy, it doesn't obey the laws of geography. So if you want to get together with your friends and chat about this show that you really like, you have to find that group first. The convention is pretty much the ultimate example of that. You get to see it en masse. In one or two people, this seems kind of unusual, a little strange, nerdy, geeky, however you want to call it. In a huge group, it can seem overwhelming, but also kind of awesome.
DragonCon has become so much to so many people. It is not easily described as one thing.
I describe it to my friends as a sci-fi, fantasy, anime Mardi Gras.
I just call it Nerdy Girl.
A nerd's opportunity to let their geek flag fly.
You can be somebody else. You can do anything you want.
I'm dressed as the Cyber King.
I'm the Dragon Rider.
I'm an 18th century zombie.
Oh, I'm Darth Vader without his helmet with lightsaber.
It's like a huge family reunion with all of the pop culture icons that you love.
A family reunion where everybody's allowed to sit at the kids' table.
Well, a new guy that hasn't worked this before, I usually give him a little heads up on it. You know, sometimes they take it, oh man, you just kidding. I said, okay, well you wait, stick around and see.
I'm gonna take down this buttercup. Bring it, let's tango.
DragonCon, in the strictest literal definition, is a 4-day convention held in Atlanta, Georgia, every Labor Day weekend, devoted to pop culture in all of its many forms. But beyond that, DragonCon has become itself a pop culture phenomenon.
There are other events that are comic book driven or film festival driven or industry driven, like San Diego Comic-Con, but this is truly grabs the heart and soul of the fans and caters to them. It is a glorious 4-day, 24-hour-a-day party celebrating everything to do with sci-fi, anime, science, fantasy.
A favorite movie, novel, short story series, comic book series, animated cartoon series. There's so many tracks of programming at DragonCon. If you can think about it, there's probably a panel that covers it.
You know, I'll pull out the program guide and I'll look at an event and I have no clue what they're talking about, who the people are, and yet when I walk by the room, it is absolutely packed and people having a great time.
Before, when I came in here, I was nervous, but now with the personal force field on, I feel very protected.
The thing that really puts it over the top is that people don't come here just as attendees who sit, watch something, and then at 6 or 7 p.m. go home, as is often the case at most conventions. Here, people are part of the convention. It is a giant living organism. At any given moment, you're going down the escalator and you're sandwiched between a Klingon and Superman.
Costumes are encouraged within this group, so that's one thing that's immediate that you would notice if you were from outside. You would just say, what are all these stormtroopers and elves and video game characters doing, and you know, why have they invaded my food court?
Dragon Con is pretty much the coolest place I've ever been to. Once I walked into the Dragon Con, it was, you know, paparazzi everywhere.
Yeah, there are fans that are just specifically there to take photos of costume characters that either love the character or just love the idea of seeing their childhood or their current infatuation with, you know, brought to life. And who doesn't want to be more than they already are, as a superhero, as, you know, Wonder Woman, a strong woman. Who doesn't want that in some way? Like your little id in the back of your head. Who doesn't want to be super? Who doesn't want to be a superhero?
It's a sensory overload, really. I mean, because you go down there, you're going to see something new every time. It's really a barometer of what's going on in current geek culture. Just look around at Dragon Con and see who has the most costumes represented, and there you go.
One of the really big themes was steampunk this year, and steampunk is a sort of a retrofuturism idea, or neo-Victorianism if you prefer. Now this genre started in the 80s. What's interesting to me is that it's just now really catching on.
Steampunk. To me, steampunk is it's a rebellion against everything that is modern, homogenized, pasteurized, and generally lacking of aesthetic. Taking our current technology, throwing it back 120 some odd years, and applying the Victorian aesthetic.
It's more technologically advanced than actual Victorian England was, but everything pretty much runs on steam, so you've got a lot of gadgets that look both antique and futuristic at the same time.
You can pretty much make an excuse for, you know, any sort of device, and for somebody who, you know, lives in the costume or prop realm, that's a great thing. I really feel like the appeal is the ability to pretty much imagine anything and make it a reality.
Penny Dreadful Productions kind of started specializing in steampunk because it was something that we all liked, and it's one of those things where you start out with just your friends, people you know who you share an interest with. And then you find out, hey, Katie does metalworking and I do costumes, maybe we could work together on a project. And hey, Matt does special effects, maybe if he made it look really dirty, maybe that would be cool.
We make all sorts of different things, from set pieces for stage, for haunted houses. We make haunted house scaring tools, and all the way up to just costumes and props for, you know, special commission.
Tonight I'm working on a commission, a costume for a steampunk Boba Fett from Star Wars, doing some finishing touches, doing some distressing to it. I know that we're going to be, you know, burning part of it, which as a costumer it's hard to deal with sometimes when you make something that's beautiful and then you go and destroy it.
This is the robot battles event at Dragon Con. Hobbyists building machines that fight against each other. The combat is open air, so things like saws and spinning weapons and, you know, flails are not allowed because they could potentially harm the audience. And so most robots will end up using sumo-style designs. It's primarily a pushing and driving competition.
And it really is just the excitement of watching that whole single combat. I mean, it goes back to, you know, the dawn of human civilization, you know, one-on-one, mano a mano, but it's high tech. One of the easiest robots to build is your classic wedge.
It's all basic plug-and-play electronics. It's a four-wheel drive system, tank steer. Everything's belt-driven, so it's really quiet, it's really mobile.
We defeat a lot of the advantages of the wedges by having hazards on the stage. Sometimes we'll put steel strips across it so they have to have a minimum clearance. That forces even more creativity.
This robot here is my entry for the year, and it uses a somewhat novel concept for this competition of using two independently actuated, appendages, so I can get a grab, clamp, and lift type action.
The lifter on the front end raises up. It allows me to be able to push somebody. It gives me that little extra, 2 or 3 inches in case I need it.
But at its really roots, it is something that an audience member can enjoy just as much as a competitor. And the competitors have a great time. There's nothing more challenging for an engineer is to design something against somebody else of the same skill level.
I think that excitement of thinking outside the box and creating something new, I think that's what drives all the people that are here, because they are lovers of science as well as fantasy. So we have science and fantasy coming together.
But I'm not into hard science, really. So if you put me in a room with people discussing actual science, I might have trouble keeping up.
Go down to Mr. McGee's. He hasn't had a thought since 43. His brain is the portrait of atrophy. He ain't using it, why not give it to me? Brains, I won't lie. I'll eat the brains till the zombified.
Stumbling upon playing at Dragon Con has been really an incredible experience for me.
Brains.
This is my 10th year.
It's not a matter if it isn't gray.
A lot of what I do has a dark, sort of snarky sensibility, and it very often is about zombies, vampires, elves, or stormtroopers. It's in many ways, music that is well suited for the kind of people who come to Dragon Con. Because if I was not a performer or an artist, I would be buying a ticket and I would be coming here anyway.
Well, doing Dragon Con is great. The tips are better, and it's really not hard. I mean, not for me. I have adjusted myself to it. I can adjust to any group that comes. I don't take them any different than I do anybody else. They're just good.
Prepare to meet the Lord. Oh, I have pity on you, fool. I pity you. Because you're wasting your life on trivial matters where the weighty matters of eternal life are sitting there, begging for your attention. But you're too busy reading science fiction novels. You won't crack the Bible.
They're all out there. Walk until you find people who look like you.
I've been coming here for about 3 years, doing it all the way like costuming. And this time I had 2 suitcases full of it. I have brought absolutely no other clothes than costumes. Well, one evening dress, but that's almost a costume in itself.
All right, people, and the people in front of you move. Move with them. Follow that way. You're going twice to get left behind.
With that kind of interest in costuming, it occurred to me one time that we are a parading people. The guy who does our setups and I were walking down the street, and the Salvation Army was the same weekend. And the Salvation Army came down Peachtree Street with a parade. And we looked at each other and said, we can do that. And while we are a parading people, we're not a physically fit people. We don't want to parade for long distances. We kind of want to, keep it under a mile.
People who come to Dragon Con love to watch the parade, but people who live in Atlanta who don't go to Dragon Con also love to watch the parade. It's definitely all about spectacle.
The evil stepsister. Yeah, I feel like a little kid. This is so awesome. I love it. I look forward to this all year. Best people watching of the year.
It's a parade unlike any other. I mean, what other parade are you going to go to that, as one of the participants, it's a group of people dressed as the periodic table of elements? It's a very visible and very enthusiastic display of the joys of geekdom.
That's definitely one perception of it. I think that it's also there's wonderment of, wow, these people really take this very seriously, and it's an important part of their lives. And I think that there is a great fascination of that really goes beyond people poking fun or laughing at it. I think it's more of a view of amazement. When you have that type of concentration of costumes in one place, I mean, you know, the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade doesn't hold a candle to it.
Before I came up here yesterday morning from Montgomery, I never so much as even heard of Dragon Con, didn't know what it was or who they were. Alabama, Virginia Tech tonight, it's going to be a great football game, but I don't know if it'll top what I've seen around this hotel since I've been here. Some of these costumes, it's just been a surreal, mind-bending experience. It's just been a lot of fun talking to some of them, and I feel like an extraterrestrial walking around the hotel here because I'm not in some crazy costume.
Making a costume based off of a character that someone else has designed, you know, if it's a video game character, if it's a cartoon, those aren't based in reality. So the challenge is really making it work in real life, because if something's not working, you can't just change the design. Someone will know, everyone knows who the character is, and you know, people are more than happy to tell you where you messed something up.
What's up, you guys? Can I have a picture? Thank you.
I think it's really rewarding if you can, you know, match that and really do a good homage to the original design. This year, sort of the big one I'm doing is Major Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell. I've done a couple other versions of the same character, and a friend of mine who does a lot of prop work offered to make the tank from the series, and he asked if I'd wear one of my old costumes with it, and so I said I'd do him one up and make a new one that would like light up along with the tank. So I'm making a widget for the boots I'm using. I found a piece on a toy that I kind of liked that I want to cast and have sit here, but I'm going to cast it in a latex so it's flexible and it ends up looking like part of the sole. Everything kind of feeds into everything else when you like creative things, so I just like learning every aspect I can. And we're going to do a resin version of it. This one's a very fast drying one, so we'll actually see it go from clear to white. You know, learning the different parts of the craft, learning how to sew, learning how to sculpt things, it's always been sort of the challenge. So as I do costumes, I pick things that get more and more challenging.
Some of the challenges with making a costume are everything. You want it to have a certain look, but you don't know how to create that look. Wanting to find the right fabric. That fabric doesn't stretch. You can't put it on. It doesn't breathe. Wigs can be a challenge. Makeup can be a challenge. It's a total learning process. Every costume, there's something challenging about it.
I've been trying to sew like leather and PVC forever, and it always rips out.
This isn't like complete leather. It's like almost like sewing spandex if you feel it.
Sorry, I'm like all up in your.
No, that's cool.
That's amazing.
Thank you very much.
I recently did a costume where I had armored pieces, and I was like, how am I going to attach these armored pieces without cutting into the bodysuit? Do we use Velcro? Do we use snaps? Eventually we settled on rare earth magnets, so this one costume has 36 rare earth magnets in it. But then I'm like, am I going to demagnetize someone's credit card when I stand by them, or am I going to set off a pacemaker? Suddenly now there's that problem. If I get near someone, is something metal going to slam into my chest?
And as we would say, Bob didn't survive.
My name's Nils Onsager.
Right up underneath the throat. That would have hurt for about a second.
Williams and I are actually doing a sword fighting and cutting demonstration today for Dragon Con. It's a misconception, usually based on movies, that sword fights actually last a period of time, 15 seconds to 45 seconds, or even into minutes. Reality is a sword fight is usually 4 or 5 moves executed before you can blink. You know, I think at Dragon Con, the appeal for swords or just weapons in general is the context back to the fantasy. And there's sort of the romance associated with swinging a sword against orcs and hobgoblins and such.
I'm sorry.
And that, and they're just a lot of fun. Okay, it works. I mean, it's a lot of fun to be in a sword fight in which you're not dying. I must also say, swords look cool on your wall, especially in quantity.
They're traditionally made, folded steel, hand-forged, with soft magnesium iron cores in the swords. It should never need to be sharpened in your lifetime.
We have a vampires series that does not romance. We have Dreams Used as Weapons by Anna DiStefano. And this is about killer unicorns, sort of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets My Little Pony Gone Wrong.
Every woman wants her man in a kilt. Trust me, they're the ones that are getting the guys to buy it, right? You know, they want to see their guys' legs.
You're welcome. A corduroy kilt is like a bath towel with pockets.
Are they doing any cords anymore?
No cords anymore.
Going to conventions is a really great promotional tool. You get out there, you meet fans. People who haven't read your book before will walk by and see the artwork, so they'll pick it up. And I actually did the badge art this year. It's a nice thing for me to be able to come out here and get to meet people who enjoy the book, because drawing comics is so solitary. It's you sit in a room by yourself for hours and days and days and days.
The only time you get to see your peers is at these shows, so it's kind of like recess at school in a way, you know. And so there's a lot of social interaction and catching up with people, and I think it's important for artists to be able to, you know, have some fellowship and community. And comic shows like this are the only way to do it.
As a professional, it sucks, I have to say. Only because sitting on the professional side of the table, you see all of this chaos going on around you, and you know that you can't be a part of it. You just have to sit back and watch it as it comes within your peripheral vision. And I think being on the other side, you can deal with everything and anything that comes your way, and there's that element of surprise that I find. Even now, having been to Dragon Con a good 13 years, you just never get tired of it.
We were founded on the premise and remain true to the premise that we want to run a convention, the like of which we would like to attend ourselves. About 1986, we planned for our first show in 1987. There were about 7 of us that got together.
Back then, you either were a science fiction convention, or you were a literary convention, or you were a gaming convention. We decided that you could kind of combine all those things and do something. And everybody said, you can't do this, it'll never work.
It was 1,200 people or less. You know, we were counting waiters and bellhops and everything else.
We put more people in a ballroom now than were there for the entire convention.
One sheet of the Pocket program had all of the events on it. One sheet would not even hold a day's worth of schedule grids now. In fact, it almost doesn't hold a day's worth of schedule changes now.
In 2001, we moved to Labor Day weekend. We went into more than one hotel. Prior to that, we had been just in a one hotel show. We had a lot of rooms to sell, so we had to get bigger or go out.
We started adding a few more what we would call media guests, and I think that changed and started the rapid growth.
To me, I think Dragon Con is the largest secret out there. The fact that so many, 40,000 people take over at downtown Atlanta. When I mention it to people, they go, what? I never heard of it. What, are you crazy? I went to my first convention. I was shocked, absolutely shocked. There was a line out the door. I couldn't believe not only how much they remembered Buck Rogers, but what enthusiasm and passion they had about the show. We were only on for 2 years, and most people only liked the first year.
Lieutenant Deering, you will go with Rogers to establish a means of communication with Saturn.
As actors, we didn't realize that by doing a sci-fi show that we would be pulling in such a large fan base, a loyal, committed, loving fan base. When you do something in that realm, I don't know what it is and why they are so fervent and excited about our work. That's the big question. I just think it's amazing, you know.
This is Arkham Horror, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to defeat this monster. We're just getting it set up now, so ultimately we'll end up going to another realm, another dimension of time and space. So, yeah, it's what we do. And we all play different characters, we all have different skills. I am Sister Mary. I'm the nun.
5, 6, 7, 8. Left, right, 3, 4. Little steps. 8, and then turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Look left, down.
We see that the Thriller record is ridiculous. I think it's like 200 and something people, and that it should be an easy number for DragonCon to break.
On. Grab.
We should be able to get close to 1,000, if not over 1,000, to dance to Thriller. And we're actually going to rehearse for a few hours prior to it and then get in the room and break the record. We should be able to have people dressed as everything from aliens to stormtroopers, zombies. We excel in zombies. We have tons of them.
I'm sorry, but the zombie locking is over here.
Beautiful, beautiful. I hope they get the brains that they want. Okay, the zombies is done for now.
I totally agree. I'm kidding. I've been a fan of monsters and the macabre for as far back as I can remember. My earliest memories are, desperately trying to stay awake while I should have been asleep watching a horror film on my tiny little black and white, TV we had at home.
I'm the fly in your soup, I'm the pebble in your shoe, I'm the bee beneath your bed, I'm a bump on every head.
The thing about monsters is, unlike humans, who can be very scary and do very, very evil things, but seem to be harmless or seem to be good on the surface, monsters are honest.
I'm evil. The devil tips his hat to me.
When you see a vampire, you know what he's about. You know that he's bad.
And I do it all for free. Your tears are all the pay you'll ever need.
And maybe in some way, to me as a child, that was reassuring, knowing that I could spot the monster immediately. It was the one with the fangs, or it was, the one who was going to crush Tokyo. I think it's reassuring to be able to see that scary monster and know that that's where all of the bad is, as opposed to it having be sort of dispersed throughout humanity.
I'm an old wrestling fan. Live Atlanta wrestling was a big deal in Atlanta. I never believed it was real. It's as much fantasy as Star Wars. It has an interesting storyline and interesting characters. And if Dragon Con is about one thing, it's fun. Let's not take ourselves too seriously. And that's where the wrestling comes from.
Why is there wrestling at Dragon Con? Because somebody asked for it. It's like, why is there alternate history at Dragon Con? Because we asked for it. The fans want it. Alternate history itself is the what-ifs of what could have been. The classic is what if Robert E. Lee would have won at Gettysburg? What were the most likely things to have happened because of that? And we explore that as alternate historians.
I did research Dr. Richard Gatling's creation, patented in 1862, and it does rotate, and it does fire and energy.
We presented the idea of a track that would incorporate not only steampunk, but alternate history, time travel, historical reenacting, anybody who basically appreciated the past and the future. When we were given the rather small room for the track, I thought, well, we'll have a few people who will show up, and I'm sure there'll be some people who will be interested. Well, I wasn't prepared for the lines out the door and practically every fifth person wearing a steampunk costume.
My name's Daniel Valdez, and this is our take of Steampunk X-Men. Here's the rest of the group right here. A lot of this is for looks, some of it is functional. This is my speed control. These are handles from fire pokers. I got them $2 at the thrift store. And the sound is controlled from a chip inside here. Everything's been extended out from the original control panel for the power wheelchair. I've had a lot of people that in wheelchairs asking me about commissions now, so I don't know if I'll ever do it because I do have a real job, amazingly, but this turned into a second job. I know over 1,000 hours into it. I've made a lot of people just go, wow, and that's what I was going
for. When I started going to conventions and I would start getting noticed for not only the quality of the costume, but just how many I had kind of a gross amount of costumes. I would start to get asked, you know what, you have a fantastic Wonder Woman, would you pose for this?
So we're gonna kick off the evening with Miracle's Black Cat, the first of 3 5-minute poses.
I do drink and draw once a month, and it gives local artists the chance to practice in life drawing, but life drawing with like a twist of being a superhero versus just a woman in regular clothing. That's how I kind of got started into the illustrative modeling aspect, was having illustrators see me in a costume and go, yeah, that's really great. I have a deadline next week. Hey, maybe I can use you as a reference model.
Sort of lean into it. Does that feel more natural, or does that?
I've learned what feels natural to me does not look natural to you.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, we're doing a character that's real, so that weight, I think, is important. Reference for an artist can mean a lot. You give them a little bit of what the story is, and in their head they're going, okay, well, she's going to be very feral, and her mouth is probably going to be open, and she's going to be gritting her teeth, and having someone actually do that helps me to define the mechanics of what actually goes in there. What are your hands actually doing in that sense? As an artist, you appreciate that in somebody who you're taking reference photos of, because in all honesty, I think they're doing a good 30% of your job for you by getting that expression you need.
If I could draw, I would be in comics in half a second. But having been influenced by comics and loving comics and reading comics, and then now being used to help create a comic, it's this whole full circle is, it's amazing because I feel like I'm a part of the creative process, and that is so fulfilling.
There you go. You are very welcome. Thank you.
4 of these?
Was this one the right size?
I need to plug this motor in.
What I'm saying, you don't want to go to the trouble of making steering. You just want to.
Oh yeah, like a tank.
Like a tank.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Dragon Con is known for robot battles, which is a combat robotics competition, and a lot of people see that every year, and it's a lot of fun. I love it. What we're trying to show here as well is that there's a different side to it, where we're accomplishing task-based goals. We're not trying to destroy the other robot here today. We're trying to build robots that can do things for us. You have the software side of it, you have the hardware side of it, the mechanical engineering aspect of it. There's so many different venues that you can get into once you have a passion for robotics.
We went to the track because we wanted a little more control. We lost a little bit of speed compared to the wheels, but we were hoping the tracks give us a little more accuracy.
4 points.
When we were testing out our balloon popping thing, I tested on my hand and actually drew a little blood, so we called it Tracula.
6, 5, 4, 3.
our balloon poppers, very simple. We started with a 6-pack of beer and we ended with these. Any balloon doesn't have a chance. We have a bucket that catches the balls and you have to deposit them in a certain area. And it took us 2 or 3 hours to build, but we're gonna go out and try to catch as many balls as we can and win. We already won. We've had 4 or 5 hours of really good fun.
Dragon Con is a party for about 30,000 of our closest friends.
35,000 people in one place. 40,000 or more people?
I don't think anybody really knows what the real number is.
I mean, I've heard we had 60,000 people. That's silly. You can't put 60,000 people in the space we have.
Dragon Con has anywhere between 75,000 to over 100,000 people in a weekend.
You hear different numbers because everybody has their estimate of how many people at Dragon Con, and very few people really know. Our attendance number for 2009 is 35,000. There's a lot of people that come downtown to Dragon Con, and they can go into the common areas of some of the hotels and not have badges. So if you count all those, which would be impossible, there's no telling what kind of number you could come up with. And if you add the people that watch the parade, you know, I'm sure the number's up around 50,000. Some come into Dragon Con, some don't.
When she's full size, she doesn't have any wings, so they're for when I shrink down, so I have slits so it doesn't rip my outfit. No, wait, give me.
Smart.
I still don't know why I want to spend that much time in a small space with that many people. I love to watch people. So you get to see all these different types of people doing different things, the sober people, the drunk people, the crazy costumes, and it's just the variety of ideas that come together. I enjoy that the most.
I think it is awesome that people look really amazing wearing these costumes that look exactly like a character that I have no idea exists. I mean, don't get me wrong, they look amazing, but from what I know, cosplay is them just standing around looking like their character. And I don't know, I would get kind of bored. Like, well, let's do something. Well, LARPing is live action role playing, and it's kind of a big umbrella of a whole bunch of games. The one that I play particularly is not so much into the role play, it's more into the live action, because it is a full contact sport. We're gonna hit you hard. That's how we roll. I feel like a lot of women can look at somebody like me and say, oh, you know, she's small and she's okay, so maybe I can do this.
LARPing is actually a lot of fun. It gives you a sense of sort of that immediate danger and also that immediate excitement that sort of comes out of a sword fight. The only difference between LARPing and real sword fights is, you know, the context. You know, in LARPing you're trying to have fun, and a real sword fight you're trying to kill someone.
I was actually coming home from work one day and I saw outside of the dorms there were these people playing with these weird sticks and hitting each other, and to be honest, I actually kind of walked by like, who are those geeks? Don't really want to look at them, don't want to be a part of them, this is weird. I have been involved for almost 5 years now, actually.
All right, 3, 2, 1, yeah.
You know, I think there's a little geek in all of us. Some people, they have their rich fantasy lives and think, I am the Princess Isidore, and I come from the Father Faldor, who reigns in the kingdom, and one day I'm betrothed to. Yeah, I'm sure there is that. But there are also people that just like to dress up in a fairy costume or like to dress up like a princess and look darn good. So whatever aspect it is, and it's none of anybody's business, frankly, we respect individual people and whatever level of imagination they want to use.
She's got style, she's got grace, she's got ridges on her face, she's a Klingon. Where's my key? She's the queen of outer space, she's a credit to her race, she's a Klingon.
When I was a teenager, my mother would put on these little neighborhood beauty pageants. Miss Springtime Blossom or Miss Summer Enchantment or things like that. I had a little bit of experience with that, so it just seemed to be such a natural idea.
Her battle trophies include 5 Romulan scalps, 4 Borg implants, a necklace of 23 Ferengi ears, and she got Paula Dean's autograph at a cornbread festival.
The Miss Klingon Empire beauty pageant, well, that one really has taken off and gone where no other convention has gone before.
And I can't believe that it's still going. The first time I ever saw it, I thought, well, this is a really funny one-off event. I'm glad they're saying this is the first annual Klingon beauty pageant. I didn't know they were being sincere.
There have been 11 annual pageants since then.
Imbecile human beings not able to do sound!
It was named one of the 11 most offbeat beauty pageants across America by America Online 2 years in a row. It has been covered by FoxNews.com, Shock Magazine, Spin Magazine, Discover Magazine. When the press come in and they want to cover the big events of DragonCon, they always make a point to come to the Miss Klingon Empire beauty pageant. It is, after all, spectacle.
Victory for the Klingon Empire! Do you want my street address?
Please.
Okay.
What is with the Klingons? Remember in the day, they looked like Puerto Ricans and they dressed in gold lame. Now they look like heavy metal rockers from the dead, with leather pants and frizzy hair and lobsters on their heads. And I say bounce a graviton particle beam off the main deflector dish. That's the way we do things, lad. We'll make it up as we wish. Klingons and Romulans, they pose no threat to us, 'cause if we find we're in a bind, we just make some up.
There is no pomp and circumstance to what I do. You know, I don't get on stage and sort of suddenly pretend to be somebody else. Like, I'm a geek and a nerd and a dork and somebody who really, truly loves and embraces Star Wars and Star Trek. I always tell people I'm bitrektual. You know, I like them both.
Then, of course, there's these weird ones. Closet geeks. Guys who are really into football, but they're not going to tell their friends that they like Star Trek.
All right, you didn't see anything.
We're all rejected by mainstream society in one form or another. What mainstream society doesn't realize, though, is that we are the ones that keep your internet running. We are the ones who design your cars. We are the ones that program your computers. The community of fans that you see at DragonCon are basically a real-life version of Revenge of the Nerds.
What keeps defocusing my scope? My specialty is helioseismology, and what I have is several narrowband telescopes which look at the solar photosphere, the coronosphere, and the white light images of solar activity. So it's a narrowband telescope viewing of the sun all 4 days at DragonCon. What amazes people is that the sun is not solid, it's a ball of gas, that it looks like every other star out there. To me, the most amazing thing about space are the distances involved. When you get to actually realizing how far away things are, it's really incomprehensible. It's hard to comprehend as a human. So to me, that's the most amazing thing. But I tell you, if you would just look up more often, you'd have a much better time in life, in my opinion.
costuming is kind of a selfish hobby in the sense that you're doing it for something you wear yourself, and you know, you're excited about it, and then you feel like you look good, but the reward is really, you know, someone else appreciates it too. You know, you're kind of sharing your love or your joy with someone else.
It totally snapped. My boyfriend's too strong for his own good. So we're just gonna work around it.
I've had costumes where at the last minute something's not working, and I do jerry-rig it together, but you know, as long as it looks polished or has a level of respect for the character, the original artist, I kind of chalk it up as a success. You know, you can pretty much go online and find an answer to anything you would want to know, or go to a forum and someone will help you. So I try to, if someone emails me and asks about a costume, do the same, you know, tell them how I made it. Because at the end of the day, sharing knowledge is what makes everyone better.
The inner workings.
I don't know, I just try to take knowledge and give it just as freely, so.
Gross.
Not so glamorous side of dressing up. I mean, it's hard work, and there are some days where I'm just like, why do I do this? This hobby's so frustrating.
Oh, that's disgusting. That's my 5 seconds in the documentary will be my sweat pouring out of my boot.
But it always pays out in the end, I guess, and just having like a finished product to say, hey, I did that, you know.
Every single person that attends this convention has one goal in mind, and that's to have a good time. You can just walk through the lobbies and the open areas, and it's like having a really stiff espresso. I need the thrill of L-A-R-P. You just get this wow kind of factor. And then you see something that makes you go, wow, I've never seen that before.
Both my drive motors ended up burning up because they were undersized, and so the robot was left without mobility, and that's why I lost. But overall, I consider it a success because this part worked extremely well.
I've been doing this for 8 years now, almost 9 years. I'm going on 2 years with this robot, so I've got a lot of experience with driving and being able to manage it, and just being able to manhandle the other robots. Just an adrenaline rush. It's what we do. It's our high, I guess.
These people spend all this time, all this money, all this practice for a very nice plaque.
Study hard, stay in school, come back next year and won't crap up.
You're not getting any real monetary gain out of it. You're getting a real sense of accomplishment and a sense of pride.
I absolutely love getting to show off all the work I've put into a costume over the year, 2 years I've been working on something, you know. That is really one of the biggest things. I just love being able to show my work that I can't normally show off for fear of imprisonment or being shunned, you know. To put something on that I've worked on that I can't normally just walk around and be like, hey, look at this costume. I'm at Kroger.
This is John Strangeway. He actually commissioned this piece from us. This is a conglomeration of all of our work.
Back in May, I had the idea for upcoming Dragon Con. I said, Matt, what would it take to make a Boba Fett steampunk? And he's like, that's an amazing idea. And I said, I know. I'm like, let's do this.
Where's the panel?
With the helmet on, visibility is pretty narrow. Navigating escalators, stairs, people, it's not an easy task, and there were mishaps. I did knock off a couple pieces which have to be reattached, so it'll be interesting to go through this all day.
Con's an extremely tumultuous scene, and there's people having a good time, and sometimes a little too much, and they bump into you, and things break, and you fall, and bad things happen, and con costumes have to be durable. You either make them extremely sturdy, or you make them so they're easily broken, but easily fixed again. So in a lot of ways, con costumes can be a little more durable than even movie costumes.
Because when you're dealing with costumes and wardrobe on film and television, a lot of times these things are fudged and we can fix them in the editing process. When you see a great costume like that in person live, it's a true testament to the person's skill as an artist.
When they say movie quality, they think it's a compliment, but to you, you're like, no, sweetie, it's not a compliment. Yeah, no, sorry, go ahead. Tangent.
Are you done? I thought your interview was done.
Hey, Bernsey?
Yeah, baby.
Can you look in the red rolling bag and see if I brought my sealant powder?
I got into costuming after meeting my wife. We had met at Dragon Con, surprisingly enough, and I've never really had any interest in being a costumer or a cosplayer, is what they're more commonly referred to. But my wife was doing a photo set of a character and needed a male model to do it with her, and I said, okay, sure, it sounds like fun. And I had a blast, you know, I had a great time doing that with her. I've been doing it ever since with her.
I kiss you, but I get you green.
Every prior relationship that I've ever had while I was a costumer didn't understand it. They just kind of had the idea of, oh, well, you know, you'll grow out of it. And you'll grow out of comic books, and you'll grow out of collecting statues. So to share something I'm so passionate about with someone that I'm so passionate about and loving towards, it's just very nice to have that complete package in a relationship that I didn't even know existed ever, that I could have somebody that completely and wholeheartedly gets me.
It's definitely something that makes you feel like your interests matter. That the fact that something has sparked your imagination isn't a bad thing. You might feel like you're the only person in the world who likes this and that you're unusual for liking it, and you can feel socially excluded. At Dragon Con and other conventions of that nature, you're part of a community and you belong. And that's a very powerful feeling no matter who you are.
Geek culture, I think, for a long time was pushed aside and kind of laughed at, I think, by the world at large as just this like nerdy subculture. But I think when you've got all these people attending a convention of this size, it can't be ignored. It really solidifies itself as a justifiable form of popular culture that is relevant.
Even if you don't share any of the interests that another person does, you can see their passion for it. And I'm a person who appreciates passion and love of what you do, so seeing that in so many people in one place is really, I guess, kind of heartwarming for me.
This is my very first con. It's such a whirlwind of everything. A lot of different nerds and geeks and dorks and whatever you want to call them. It's a place where I feel like at home.
You don't make the kind of friends like you do at Dragon Con anywhere else, whether they be lasting or just for those 4 days, or even, and I've been told in some cases, some people have had very deep friendships for about 20 minutes. We're all misfits, so as a result, we all come together under this one beautiful umbrella that is the chaos of Dragon Con, and I use chaos in the most endearing way as I can. I was at an underground disco with gay Klingons. How many times can you say that in any course of conversation?
This is my favorite show of the year, and you are my favorite people to see every year.
It really is like leaving planet Earth for a while and being on another world. And for 4 days, you get to be someone other than who you are at home. And you get to be somebody different every 15 minutes if you don't mind changing your costume.
Whether you dress up like a Ghostbuster, a Stormtrooper, or one of the slave girls from Star Wars, nobody cares. Nobody minds. You're fine. If you want to talk to somebody about who would win a fight, Hulk or Thor, nobody's going to scoff and say, oh man, that's stupid. People are going to get involved in that discussion.
You hang out with friends, you're all chatting, you're having a good time. Maybe you're talking about science fiction and fantasy. Maybe you're talking about the job that you left on Wednesday that you hate and it just drags you down, but it doesn't matter because this weekend is all about just having fun, being with friends that you may not even see for another 12 months. It's crazy and fun and amazing and immersive, and it does not stop until Monday, 5 p.m. And that's pretty much your typical Dragon Con weekend.